The dog climbed into the hot air balloon and took off the next second, reaching a height of 100 meters. The woman actually threw it down. It turned out the woman was well prepared, just playing a prank on everyone. She was dressed flamboyantly, and her actions were even more daring. Only by trying hard to attract attention could she get more sponsors. Amy had a dream of flying, pursuing higher limits, but James was like a bookworm, only caring about his own data. He just wanted to use the hot air balloon to make more accurate weather forecasts. The woman next to him was so crazy, it gave him a bit of a headache. But in Amy's view, the adventure had just begun. However, no one anticipated that a seemingly normal flight would plunge them into a crisis. At the beginning, all the data was very normal. The two were in a rare relaxed mood, but before long, the cloud layer pressed down. Amy, with her rich experience, quickly took off her coat and changed into waterproof clothing, but James was immersed in the data, not heeding her advice at all. The altitude reached 1,800 meters. They began to enter the cloud layer. The humidity grew and grew, quickly enveloping them. James excitedly felt the humidity, experiencing the wonders of high altitude. At that moment, a clap of thunder suddenly rang out. The air pressure began to drop rapidly. Clearly, they had encountered a storm. Soon, the balloon began to sway, but James, disregarding the danger, was still busy collecting data. It got darker and darker around them, and the balloon started tilting. Amy tried to lift the balloon to quickly rise above the cloud layer, but accidentally, she was blown out herself. She gripped the railing with all her might, about to lose her hold any second. James quickly tied a rope, reaching out to grab her. The two used all their strength and managed to avoid falling. Amy threw out sandbags for ballast, reducing the balloon's weight, then tied herself with a rope, enduring the violent turbulence. After a long time, everything finally settled down. The two laid in the basket as the balloon broke through the clouds, greeted by the sunlight above. The white clouds made them both grin foolishly. While everything was calm, they quickly reinforced the ropes. Then, filled with anticipation, continued floating to higher altitudes. As the balloon rose, the surroundings became completely silent. The two were like free birds, howling wantonly in the sky. But because she shouted with too much effort, the girl actually fainted from lack of oxygen. The balloon kept ascending, soon reaching a height of 5,200 meters. The scenery suddenly changed. Countless butterflies appeared. James was very excited, cupping a butterfly in his hands. He couldn't believe butterflies could fly even higher than birds. At an altitude of 7,000 meters, the temperature had noticeably dropped. The air had also become very thin. Amy urged him to put on a waterproof suit. Only then did he finally confess. The waterproof suit was too heavy to bring more equipment. He didn't bring the suit on the balloon. The balloon continued to rise, already covered in a layer of frost. No matter how high it went, James would soon freeze to death. Amy pulled the rope, wanting the balloon to start descending, but James strongly opposed and continued to pour out sand. They had finally made it here with great difficulty, seeing sights they'd never seen before. He didn't want to hinder Amy's dream because of himself. At an altitude of 8,000 meters, the temperature dropped to 15 degrees below zero. The balloon was covered in ice and snow. The man was shivering from the cold, but he was still trying hard to record, tying the data he left behind to a pigeon's leg. But as soon as he sent it out, the pigeon plummeted straight down. The other remaining one also died from lack of oxygen. He was like a madman, throwing the box down as well. Even if he froze to death, he was still insistently flying upward. Amy saw his abnormality and hurried to pull the valve to release air, but no matter how hard she tried, the valve was already firmly stuck.